Alrighty, good morning, YouTube. Even though technically it is, and I'm glad I looked at the clock because it's like 1 in the morning, me recording this. But this is Hajim Zero here, back with another quick movie review, and this one's going to be a major controversial one, somewhat in a way. But this is Resident Evil Extinction. Again, it stars Milla Jovovich. Again, if I'm butchering their names, Omar Faraday, Mike Epps, newcomer Ali Larter, Ashanti, and is directed by Paul S. Anderson, and also Iain Klein is in this too. Again, all their names will be in the description because I know I butchered a few, but this is pretty much, if you've seen my last two videos, and I even mentioned it at the end, this is the movie where the lore, not really the lure, but the story takes a complete 180 turn. And you can say for good or for worse, but it's just like it's a mixed bag. If you look up Watch Mojo's top 10 like worst zombie movies, this one I think is like number one. And it's a shame because it's not perfect, but at the same time, you gotta leave, at least give a little bit of credit what Paul S. Anderson did try to do. Mainly with the theme of this one, the major good, change is that it's more in the desert. From the rest of these movies on, you see a little bit of, not much of a theme, but environmental change, and of course, and new things that are introduced. Some of them are from the game. You know, like one of the staples that's always going to be there are the undead and dogs. Those has pretty much been in every single Resident Evil game anyway. Um, but of course, the newer creature is the tyrant. If you play the first game, and the undead crows, which made a lot of sense. If animals can be affected, it's funny how it didn't happen a lot sooner, I guess. Of course, this is the first movie where we really get to see the whole world be affected by the T virus. And uh, pretty much for the whole movie, again, like the other ones, they're just trying to survive. And again, like I said, the whole world is infected. So pretty much if you're into the whole zombie lore, of course, with The Walking Dead, how it's introduced, constant moving, this really, really is heavy implied on it. Well, at least in the beginning days of The Walking Dead, number one, the zombies, they didn't have, they had basic limitations. The only big reveal, of course, every morning it turns, and, noise and basic stuff attracts them. On here, you know, the T virus, they're mutating, or the virus itself is mutating, and they have super zombies now that run fast, and they have problematic thinking, and some of that element came from Resident Evil 4. I think this movie came out right around the time Resident Evil 4 did, and now introduced, the parasitic zombies. Well, you could say zombies, but parasitic controlled, infected people, which is different from this, but that's what they were trying to capitalize on. Well, at least Paul S. Anderson was. Um, so in this movie, they're trying to survive, and the ultimate goal is that they try to get up north to Alaska because the infection hasn't reached that far. Well, at least that's what they believe. And to an extent, that was kind of true once I review Afterlife, where it was nobody up there. But it's a semi twist and something I'm going to talk about in Afterlife of what actually happened when they did get there. Um, Nice elements introduced. Claire from the game is on here, which is like a fan favorite. Portrayed again by Ali Lauder. Again, they changed, you know, the character from the game versus the movie are two completely different people. Um, if you play the game, Claire is more of an environmentalist, trying to stop bioterrorism. And of course, she's a motorcyclist, and her brother Chris is the one that trains her to really be proficient with guns. On here, you really don't know that much about her. In Afterlife, of course, Chris is introduced, so it's a little bit more backstory, and I don't know what, it really looks like on the final chapter, because like I said, I haven't seen it yet. I'm still going to review it, but I haven't seen it. When I do the review, it's the first time I've seen it. This movie, actually, all five of them, I've seen so many times. But just a little backstory on her character like that. Ashanti's character was interesting, and more I watched it. She's not based off of any character, but I think some bits and pieces were there of Rebecca a little bit from Resident Evil 0, because she was a medic, and the character they created for this film named Betty, she was a medic, and even the way she's dressed looks a little bit like Rebecca. Um, and then on top of that, if you play Resident Evil 5, I think a little bit of the character model, at least in my opinion, looked a little bit like Ashanti. The more and more I had, played it, or at least thinking about it now, the only difference, I think Sheva's probably a little bit more taller than Ashanti. So, they're both beautiful women. One's fictional, one's real. But it was kind of a shock to me. I think it was at the time when Ashanti was starting to appear in more movies, and I think that this was our first horror film. She did another movie. I think it was not Love and Basketball. Coach Carter, and I haven't seen her ever since. But you know, she wasn't that bad. My opinion, and they just gave her what she could work with. I think if she really want to do a career in movies, I think she could do it. Just give her a very, very one good role that's believable, and she's set. But I'm not gonna tell her what to do. So, um, Mike Epps returns in this. Fortunately, he dies. He gets bitten, and it's weird with the rules of when people turn when they're bitten, because I think Michelle Rodriguez's character Rain was bitten and scratched multiple times in the first movie, and it took her a while for her to turn. And even when she got the cure, she still turned. And that ploy is weird, because in this, when the doctor was bitten, which is the main villain that turned into the tyrant, I think he injected himself with the cure so many times that's what caused him to mutate. At least I think that's what I've heard. And another change in this film, Alice, the main heroine, which is a little bit of a plot detail that I didn't want to talk about till this one, and I think it plays heavily into the final chapter. In this one, it's revealed that she has a bunch of clones, and they. I couldn't remember the main reason for cloning. I would think because in our real world, human cloning is so rare. But they were really trying to clone her to find, you know, um, what, they really didn't say if it was a cure. I know they were trying to domesticate the undead, but if you had the cure, it wouldn't. Oh yeah, yeah, just thousands of the undead. Okay, yeah, they really were trying to domesticate them so they can't go back on the surface and not live in Shamble anymore. Okay, yeah, so that would make sense, because once you turn, you can't take the cure. Yeah, that's right. Okay, answer my own question. But behind the scenes, with the influences of this film, it was more Mad Max, and it was funny because I heard they kind of did it again in the final chapter, but from what I saw in the trailer, it didn't look like Mad Max was that influence. And when we get to that movie, I'm definitely going to say what the influence to me looked like, especially from seeing it from the trailer. But on here, it looked like Mad Max, especially that final scene, where they had to break into the Umbrella compound and Carlos sacrifices his life. Uh, and that was, he pretty much did it because he was bitten again, which to me didn't make any sense, because they still could have done that plan and figure out some way, to blow up the truck without him killing himself. Could have put something on the gas and ran through that shit, but, I'm not, in their head, and possibly Paul S. Anderson would have told me to shut up anyway, you know, um, but there were a lot of good elements. Excuse me. Not really good, but decent elements in this. Also, Alice has telekinetic powers when they experimented on her. So that was a new thing. And again, if you this really takes a 180 turn because this really doesn't pick up where the last one left off. The last one left off with Alice being in control of the Umbrella Corporation, and in this one she's completely free. She gives a brief catch up on what happens, but she never did explain how she got off the grid, and that's when you have to read the novel, like I said before, because Jill isn't in this one. Mostly behind the scenes, the actress was unavailable to be in this movie, and she doesn't appear again to Resident Evil Afterlife at the end credit, and of course Retribution. But in the novel, they had explained where she was, and I think I mentioned that before, that she was the one that got that girl killed, the Ashford girl. Yeah, now that I think about it, I think it was either her or Project Alice, but I think it was mainly her because that's when that mind control device was put on her, you know, and coming from Resident Evil 5. So again, I'll talk more about that in Afterlife, but um there really weren't that many game elements adapted, to this. It was mainly, of course the characters and remix characters a little bit. Uh the one that I had mentioned, even though they didn't admit it, that's the one I came up on my own with the Betty character. Uh, and mentioning Paul S. Anderson, one of the past castmates, or not castmates, actors he's worked with before is in this. The one from Mortal Kombat. His name is Linden Ashton. He's in this film as well, and I recognized him. It's just a shame that he died, and it was in the most fucked up way. So yeah, but that's pretty much all I have to say about the film. I was kind of mad about it. I didn't give it that much hate like most other people will, and of course what Watch Mojo did. But that's pretty much all I have to say. Um, One final thing, also from another film that I noticed, what Paul S. Anderson had did when the crows are shown, and possibly I think what the original game creator had did too, because the crows do appear in the game, but it was more effective in this movie, was all the crows um that surrounded the survivor camp when they were in their cars the next morning. I believe he got that from the birds. If you the iconic scary image of all the birds on the jungle gym, and it's a scary thing, and I think I mentioned this fear before with Dawn of the Dead and why it made it so scary is a swarm of something coming after you is fucking terrifying, whether it'll be people or animals. you know if you see the birds, it solidified the additional fear, because when you see birds, you don't think, you see one, you don't think of it being dangerous and harming you, but if you see thousands or millions of them, you're going to be terrified. And it's funny because when I was younger, a funny story, going to the beach, I was eating a cookie, and a bunch of seagulls had surrounded me, all because they wanted that cookie. And the good thing, I wasn't that petrified, but when I found out what they were trying to do, they didn't come at me and peck me. But I would have fought back, or better, as much as an asshole I would have been, I would have put laxative in the shit and watch them explode. So, it's kind of funny how animals do that. Even with the old people at the park who are nice that feed the birds, there's a lot of them there, but it's not hundreds and thousands of them. So that, to scare the shit out of them. But they did um do that fear a little bit really well. If you see Lost World Jurassic Park in that opening scene, when those small dinosaurs attacked that girl because she had that food, and they redid it again. So the only difference was that this character was killed versus the little girl who was just injured. So one is not dangerous, but all riled up group and hungry, like Morgan said on The Walking Dead, you watch your ass. Yeah. So, but that's all I have to say, because I'm rambling, and I will see you guys in the next review. Peace.